Hello and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. I am Daryl Grove, and joining me with a bottle of wine in the background that someone really should remove, it's Taylor Rockwell. That's an inside joke. Hello.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, it's the wine's in the background. I'm shaking the camera. People are leaning in randomly just to see what's going on. It's craziness on this side of the table.
All of this will be familiar to you if you saw Bruce Arena's Facebook Live Q&A about his US national team January camp roster.
Yeah.
I love that someone eventually spotted it and said, there probably shouldn't be a bottle of red wine behind the US national team coach.
You know that we've moved house recently, my wife and I. It had all the hallmarks of, wait, they're coming over now? Oh, we got to scramble. Like, our stuff is still everywhere. Because it does feel like maybe they were going to do it in Bruce Arena's office, and he was like, no, like, we're not showing my office. So they did it in some random person's cubicle is what it looked like.
You sure? So, before we actually get into analysing the roster, which is what we're going to do on this show, was that any chance that's Bruce Arena's office?
No. I don't
think so. It
looked
a bit cubically, right?
The only thing I'll say is that there was a bottle of wine, and maybe that was like given to him as like drink this when we win the World Cup. But you would think that would be a bottle of champagne. It wouldn't be a bottle of red wine, which is what that appeared to be.
Champagne in the bath, right?
Exactly.
When he won MLS.
Exactly.
So I kind of imagine
and at
that
the press conference, I believe.
I imagine that there's one big headquarters for all national team managers of various nationalities, and they all have a cube there, and they all go there and do their national team work.
That's possible. I also have the more depressing reality, or possible reality, which is that there's just a bank of cubicles in the middle of U.S. Soccer's headquarters, and he just randomly walked around until he found director of media or whatever it was.
Well, I would bet this is not at U.S. Soccer headquarters, right? That's in Chicago. It's that nice-looking old house in Chicago. He's got to be in California, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not even sure what facility they would be.
Well, there we go. These are the answers we need to find out, Mr. Grove. These are the answers.
Maybe he just commandeered and hijacked someme's office.
That's what I'm saying, though. I like the idea of, like, maybe not the director of media, but like
you sell insurance. I'm taking your cubicle for a bit.
Like the new intern who does media. They're like, I'm just sitting here, man. Get out of here.
All right, shall we get into the roster then?
Let's do it.
It was released at 12:30 Eastern.
Sort of.
Today, Thursday. Yeah, 12:35 in the end, but it's roughly when they said it would be.
I'm just saying, if you're going to do like our album's going to drop at 12:30, that album needs to drop at 12:30, not 12:36.
There were 32 names on this roster for the January camp and the upcoming friendlies. Maybe it's worth refreshing people's memories about what's going to happen here.
Sure.
So Bruce Arena calls in these players beginning very soon, I believe like early to mid-January. They train. They have like a big camp. Bruce Arena gets to work with these 32 players. At the end of the month, there is a friendly against Serbia in San Diego. I accidentally said San Jose. Jim Brochard let me know about it on Twitter. Hi, Jim.
It's confusing because San Diego is the friendly, San Jose is the World Cup qualifier.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, that was definitely my mistake. Yeah. Then there's a friendly against Jamaica in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
So I was wrong about the friendly being against Atlantis in Santa Barbara. That was my mistake.
So close.
That was my mistake. Yeah.
So close. All right, so looking at this roster, which is exclusively MLS players, let's get that off the table first. It's exclusively MLS players.
I think it's controversial, Daryl. I think it's telling that, former MLS coach, all he did was call in MLS players.
So some people think that's what's happened.
It's a shame Bobby Wood has no career anymore.
European players are not available for this roster.
Right.
MLS players only. Even Liga MX players, I think, have games coming up, right?
And I think if
MLS
you
only.
really wanted to be a stickler, I do think there's going to be a couple people out there who are like, well, Klinsmann called in a few when he was in charge, and that was like Josie Altidore, I think, like way back when Sunderland were like, we want nothing to do with him, maybe.
But it was
him. And Julian Green when he was at Bayern, and Bayern wanted nothing to do with him either. So it was like MLS players and the players who had absolutely no shot at playing for their European teams that Jurgen Klinsmann was trying to like maybe help get a move.
So here's the roadmap to the rest of the show. We're going to give you our sort of quick reactions. We're going to take a look at some of the things Bruce Arena said in the Q&A, which I think were kind of valuable, some of them, some less so. Then we're going to look at any remaining questions we have unanswered that we want to sort of speculate on, and we might even try and pick some sort of starting 11 from this 32-man roster.
Might could even try.
All right, so Taylor, initial reaction when you saw this, we flashed it up on the big screen here at TSS headquarters. What was the first thing you thought?
The first thing I thought was that's a lot of goalkeepers because there are 5 of them, one of whom is Stefan Frei, who is not yet a U.S. citizen. I believe he has his green card, does not have a passport, is not technically eligible to play for the United States.
I am as eligible to play for the United States as Stefan Frei right now. We have the exact same immigration situation. Been here 11 years, permanent resident, not a citizen. And
it's even a little more complicated because I believe he has played for Swiss youth national teams.
Is
so
that right?
he might even have to file a one-time switch to play for the
switcheroo
US.
got to happen
Yeah,
there?
but first he has to get all of his other paperwork done.
What else jumped out at you?
then the obvious inclusion of players like Darlington Nagbe,
Yes.
Benny Feilhaber, Dax McCarty, players that were clearly on the outs under Jurgen Klinsmann, have been called back into the fold.
Was there a little bit of, like, we knew those guys would be on there, but to me there was still a little bit of relief, because there's been so many times where we've seen rosters come out and Nagbe's not on it or Kleshton's not on it, and we're like, oh no.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I feel like Klinsmann's made us nervy, and Arena has sort of calmed our nerves here.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that end, I think it was also nice that there weren't any like huge names left off that we were like, oh, that's going to be a source of controversy. Like some of the bigger ones, I guess, that aren't there would be like maybe Matt Beasler, that he didn't get in there, but that's because of injury.
Yeah,
I guess the only
ankle
one
surgery. Did you say he had ankle surgery in December?
Left ankle in early December. Yeah.
Oh, that's his best one.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you got to work on that. Kyle Beckerman, I guess, would be the big one, not included on this roster.
Right, I searched hard for Kyle Beckerman injury or any reason he may have been left off. It seems like Arena is sort of saying, all right, it's time to move on. Because, for example, Kellen Acosta's there, defensive midfielder, who Will Trapp, deep line midfielder.
So a lot of defensive midfielders.
So if you're one of those people who thinks Arena's going to keep selecting the old guard, that isn't necessarily what's happened here.
No, it's not. It's not. So those are the things that jumped out to me. Anything for you?
Kakuta Mane for the same reasons as Stefan Fry. Also not eligible, but eligible to run around in practice camp, I guess.
Yeah. I think I was also surprised to see that both Jermaine Jones and DeMarcus Beasley remain unattached.
Right.
Jermaine Jones, I think, less so because he's basically the property of the LA Galaxy. They just maybe haven't come to terms on his contract.
Yes,
I think it's going to be higher than people wanted it to be.
And I was kind of happy to see Chad Marshall.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed Chad Marshall's performances this year. I always remember when we started really looking deeply at MLS, I would look at sort of heading stats, and Chad Marshall is literally head and shoulders above everybody because he keeps winning those headers, and his sort of really good performances through Seattle's MLS Cup playoff run. So it was nice to see him in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other one that I think maybe stood out to me, but also stood out to a couple different Facebook users because it was the first question that Bruce Arena was asked was, Graham Zusi is listed as a defender and is going to be playing right back, apparently.
Yes. All right, so do you want to get into Arena's responses then?
Sure.
We're going to give maybe edited highlights of what we saw as Arena's most interesting responses to the Q&A thing.
This sounds like a plan.
The first question was the first question like, Graham Zusi is a right back? What's happening there?
I think what happened is that, again, they were a little bit late. No criticism, but they were a little bit late starting it. And I think that he had like 4 or 5 questions already ready to go. So they started the Facebook Live thing, and he was basically like, first question up, and like just rolled through like 3 or 4 of them.
He was on
in a row.
it.
He was,
Good Bruce.
And then he stayed on it after that. I think the first time maybe he learned his lesson where they were kind of scrolling through the comments trying to find.
Because it's not a good look, right, for you to be like staring into the webcam and scrolling down the screen. It never looks authoritative.
No, it does not. And then as we talked about previously, I think they're also maybe sort of editing the questions and selecting them. I forget what the term we used last time was. But
screening? Filtering?
Yeah, sure. Screening, filtering.
Let's talk about that then. What do you think maybe were the things... Because we looked at the Facebook page. There was something like 1,000 comments by the end of this. People still asking questions after the Q&A was over, which is interesting. What I would imagine any questions about sort of Michael Bradley, like, why not get rid of Michael Bradley? The sort of questions that people are asking.
Like, when are you going to drop Bradley? Why no Brad? Or why is Bradley there?
And I'm going to go ahead and say these are questions that don't deserve an answer.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, because obviously there's going to be questions about why Chris Wondolowski, why is Wondolowski there?
Yeah,
there's going to be those. Then we did even keep saying as we saw the questions come through on the sidebar, there was still a lot of where's Christian Pulisic? Why no Christian Pulisic? What about Bobby Wood? That was also a question he was asked. That's what prompted the. We're not calling in Europeans because we're not calling Europeans. We never do for this camp. It was because somebody asked about Bobby Wood.
I would say as well, this sort of the spectrum of questions was a good representation of the level of knowledge of US fandom. Because on one hand, you've got the where's Bobby Wood? Will you drop Michael Bradley? Like there's the uninformed about what's happening with January camp. There's the angry about specific players, even though they're easily one of our best players. But then at the other end of the spectrum, there were very smart questions about like, hey, how come no Christian Roldan or Lee Win? Like that's an interesting question.
Where will Kevin Acosta play?
Yeah, what position will he play? Like some really smart questions as well.
Same for Darlington Nagbe and Giassi Zardes. So some smart questions there, and which I appreciated. And then there's like the ones in the middle that it almost feels like the type of questions that people have as like, here are 10 stock questions you can ask if you're on the spot and you don't know what to ask in an interview. Because it's like, how important is youth in this camp? What are you hoping to get out of this camp? How do you see yourself?
Generic questions.
It's very generic. That like I think maybe are like softball questions that he can answer, and maybe those are the ones that I remember the word. That's why I celebrated a minute ago. Are curated the way they are, so that I think you get this mixture of direct questions. Then maybe he gets some time to answer why he chose soccer over lacrosse. and then he can get another hard question.
That was the burning question.
It really was. Everybody needed to know.
US national team
it was gotcha journalism at its finest. I was told there would be no lacrosse questions.
If only our best lacrosse players managed national teams. Should we get to Graham Zusi then? Because it may be the standout thing on the roster is Graham Zusi listed as a defender.
Aside from two guys who aren't eligible to play for the United States.
Yeah. The most eye-catching. Yeah, you're still right. Graham Zusi listed as a defender.
Yep.
Arena saying we're going to try him at right back. We think he has something to offer the team there. He's very versatile. And I saw this rumoured on Twitter yesterday, so I kind of half expected this to come, but it's still a weird idea.
It makes me wonder if that invitation to camp was offered to Graham Zusi, but it was dependent upon him accepting playing right back. Because the exact quote was...
The invitation had a PTO for please turn over, and it's like, by the way,
I mean,
bring your right back boots.
No, I think it might have even been more blatant than that, because, and like, I'm taking this not necessarily out of context, but sometimes, I'm sure you do this too, and I don't go the full voice, but if you're like in a disagreement with your wife or significant other, or even sometimes when we're together, and it's like, you sound like this, and it's like, I did not sound like that. That is not how I sounded. So I'm not trying to do that to Bruce Arena here. Not trying to manipulate the way he sounds. But the quote that I heard him say was, Graham can still help our team as a right back. So I think the implication would be, we still want to see what you can offer this team, but you're not playing midfield for us. Now, if you want to focus on defense, we'll see what happens in this camp, and that's why I think he's there.
Actually, if we're going to talk about this, I look at some of the players who he mentioned playing wide. Most of them possess a bit of pace, a bit of directness.
Yeah.
Right? He talked about Morris, talked about Zardes, talked about Nagby playing wide. All of those guys have way better wheels than Graham Zusi. I really think it may be a case of... he also talked about being more aggressive going forward. I think it may just be that Zusi doesn't fit with the plan, the style of play that Arena envisions for his US national team. That makes me happy just because it means that he has a plan.
I think so too. So I'm fine with seeing that. I think another thing that would have made me happy is seeing Clint Dempsey's name on this roster, which was something that Bruce Arena had talked about previously, that maybe Dempsey would be involved, that they were talking to him about being in the January camp.
Just to help him get fitter, ready for the start of the MLS season, which maybe gets him closer to being able to play against Honduras and Panama. Did someone ask about this?
They did, and his answer, because Dempsey not included in this roster, we thought maybe he'd still be called in, but just to like practice with the team.
So when he was asked his question, we thought maybe he'd say, well, actually, he's going to be there doing some jogging.
And he might be. Like, maybe there'll be a wild Dempsey will show up. Who knows? But in the meantime, Arena said he's making great progress, but he's not fully ready to come back into camp. He will be ready for Seattle in March, and maybe the qualifiers in March as well. So basically, they're going to give him MLS preseason, the first little bit of the MLS season, and see how he's doing before they decide if they're going to have him play in those qualifiers.
But it does mean, if you're just tracking Dempsey's progress, it means he wasn't ready for this camp.
This is true.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also, maybe Dempsey felt he needed a bit more rest in order to get ready for March is also possible.
I think that's possible, and I think maybe that also shows, if you're a Seattle fan, that he's working towards coming back, that he's not prioritizing a January camp. He's prioritizing getting fit, getting healthy to be able to play next season.
Yep.
But I think it also might show you that Dempsey is very much in Arena's plans for those World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah, he'd be in mine. Why wouldn't he be?
Well, but also because he said later on that basically we know who we're going to call in for those March friendly, or for those March qualifiers.
He said it was more or less set. Right?
Yeah, essentially. And so I think with that in mind, it shows you that Arena has this squad that he's kind of got at least roughly fleshed out.
Yeah.
And I think maybe Dempsey is part of that, which is why he's saying he might be in there. And I think that means that if he's fit, he's going to bring Dempsey because he wants that experience.
I absolutely agree with that.
There we are.
Okay, he also mentioned Kellen Acosta as a defensive midfielder. We talked about this earlier. This was a thing I was really happy about because that's where he plays for Dallas.
Yeah.
That's where he has the best chance of succeeding for the US national team. It's also, if you don't have Carl Beckerman anymore, it's kind of a guy who can do a bit of defending and has the bonus of legs. Not that Beckerman doesn't have legs, but you know what I mean? Has the wheels to get up and down the field and can be that sort of Bradley stays, Acosta goes up and down, and then there's like a number 10 like question. Yeah. I can already see like a midfield taking shape like that.
I appreciate the things that Jurgen Klinsmann did as U.S. men's national team manager to some extent. But you do sound a little bit like a person who's had a horrible boss for years and years and years, and then suddenly you have a boss who's like just kind of nice and like thanks you for bringing them something.
Yeah.
And you're sort of like, thank you. Like what? Like I just love that one of the things that you're excited about, that he was like, he's going to play Kellen Acosta where Kellen Acosta actually plays. This is so exciting. I can't wait.
I imagine there are FC Dallas fans who feel the same way.
Yes, I believe there were many of them on Twitter.
What else stood out to you about what Bruce Arena said in the Q&A?
Well, one thing that stood out because it was a little confusing to me was that I guess he was asked about how the U.S. is going to play. That was kind of the general question. And he answered a few different things, one point of which was, we want to be aggressive going forward. We lost some of that aggressiveness in the qualifiers.
Yeah.
Now, I think the second part of that makes sense, that he feels like maybe the United States didn't take their opportunities, weren't ruthless, didn't get the results, obviously. Yeah. But I don't know what that means in terms of being aggressive.
What does aggressive mean going forward?
And I don't think that this is the same as we need to get into a rhythm. It's not a rhythm question like a la Clemson.
Well, it kind of is, in that it's one of those words that sounds like something you want in your team, but it's really hard to pin down exactly what it is. But I think, for me, Klinsmann did all that, whereas Arena has given some specific answers, plus this one thing.
Well, I think it would only be if Arena, the next 2 Facebook Live things or next 2 press conferences, talked about how we have to be aggressive. Then it becomes more of that. It's just that Klinsmann would consistently say, rhythm is important, we must play with a rhythm, we must pass with a rhythm.
Others are ahead of him.
Blah, 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 blah. Others are ahead of him. Exactly.
So what could aggressive mean? Like, for me, it could mean just, I picked up on maybe the pace out wide he was thinking about, and maybe aggressive just means we have 3 fast, strong players, in like Jordan Morris, Josie Altidore, Jassy Zardes, maybe. That's aggressive. That's an aggressive forward line.
It is. It could be taken the other way, though, which is that he was asked about what formation the U.S. is going to play, if they're going to play a back 3 or a 3-4-2-1, and his answer was, no, we need to play a back 4. That's something that's very clear.
He specifically ruled out playing a back 3 because 2 people asked about it.
And he also said that, like, basically the United States, the defense, our back line can play better than they have been.
Yeah.
And so I think what that points to is...
after that 4-0 loss to Costa Rica, I'd agree with that.
I think what that means, though, is that he wants to shore up the defense, and he wants to make sure that they're playing solid soccer, and that could mean a 4-2-3-1. That could mean our focus is on the defense. Then we'll boot it long to Josie. We'll have pace out wide to kind of support him. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
So it could even just be that direct aggressive approach to get the ball out of the back and into the attack. Then you put him under pressure there.
It could also mean maybe when we've got possession, kind of like you said, not being too patient, maybe being willing to just go at people. I mean, that may be what aggressive means. And it can mean sort of we'll risk losing the ball if it means we can sort of have a chance at getting through the back line.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess we'll find out. We'll find out more late January.
I would say
Serbia's B team.
I would say we will. But what we also found out is that Bruce Arena is going to let us know some things, and that's a thing that I very much appreciate, which is specifically when asked about specific players. Now, that includes the players who were left out. He gave reasons. I mean, basically the same reason for Christian Roldan and Lee Nguyen as to why they weren't included, which is basically they had great seasons. They didn't quite make it. They were in consideration. Roldan specifically, I think he said, will be given a chance in 2017.
Because he'd mentioned Roldan, I think in a previous interview, he'd mentioned Roldan as a player that he liked. He liked his passing. So, it's kind of a surprise to not see him on this roster.
Right. So that was nice to hear. Like, you're never gonna hear him say, like, well, Lee Nguyen, didn't do enough stepovers this season. Like, he's not going to be that specific, but to hear those 2 guys, here's why they didn't make it roughly.
Yeah.
But more importantly, I think, was him saying, here's where Darlington Nagbe is going to play. Here's how I envision him.
Yes.
And giving you specific insight into where he plans to start with the player.
Yeah.
Now, he did say, we're going to start with Nagbe out wide. We know he can play central, though, so we might see him there. But I think he at least gave you an idea of where he prioritizes Nagbe playing.
And he said the same for Zardes, right? He said, I know he plays as a forward for
and Jordan Morris,
the Galaxy because I was the head coach. But I'm going to play him. He said he's going to start out wide for us.
Yep.
So that's kind of interesting that he was very careful to give specifics, but also I don't know if he's. I don't want to say he's been coaching this. He's probably just a wise, experienced man who knows to do this. To then put that little caveat on the end so that people can't say, "Well, you said he'd definitely play out wide. You never mentioned him playing up front." And then
and so I think he did a good job of kind of covering those bases. But what I really appreciated is that he told us those specifics. So he told us Nagbe out wide. He told us Zardes out wide. He said the same thing of Jordan Morris. He talked about their flexibility and that they can function in a variety of positions, but I think he gave us a clearer picture of what he expects from those players.
And you can start imagining a team, right? You're not like throwing darts at a board when you're trying to pick a US men's national team.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, and even if he says, well, Nagbe can play out wide or he can play in the middle, you still get this idea that he has a specific idea of what he wants him to do out wide and then what he would want him to do because he gives you the numbers, right? He gave us, he's going to be a 7 or an 11 or a 10 or an 8.
Yep.
To me, even though that's 4 different things, it's not really because it has a specific idea of what's going to happen, right? And so I feel like that's not something you would get from Klinsmann. You'd get he can play in many positions, he's very good, but we want to work on that toughness and that physicality. Like, that's not what I asked about. I asked where he's going to play.
So pivot to intangibles.
Yes, so I like that Bruce is going to tell us those things and tell them straight up.
Anything else from the Q&A that you want to talk about before we get to our own questions about this roster?
Just maybe Jamarcus Beasley. Well, actually, I want to talk about 2 things. I take that back. I want to talk about the return of the old guard in the sense that Benny Feilhaber is back. And that's exciting. He was asked about who are your creative midfielders, and that's where he mentioned Darlington Nagbe could be a creative midfielder, but that was on the back of saying he's probably going to play wide. And so really it came down to Sasha Kljestan and Benny Feilhaber.
Yep,
and it's
in
exciting.
that order, and I think that is that order for Jurgen Klinsmann.
I absolutely agree.
Loves him some Sasha Kljestan, and I don't
agree.
blame him. So maybe Kljestan number 1.
I forgot about that whole story and people have already made a big to-do of that, but that he tried to get Sasha Kljestan at the LA Galaxy, and that fell through in acrimonious fashion.
Oh yeah, he raged at the MLS roster rules.
He sure did. So it's nice to see.
Now he gets his man.
He does, and it's nice to see those two back. And then DeMarcus Beasley. He was asked about DeMarcus Beasley in sort of a "why is he here?" sort of way.
Why is he here again?
And I think the answer that he gave is the obvious one. It's experience and enthusiasm.
Yep.
You want a kind of veteran leader. You want somebody who's going to bring that locker room presence is what I'm taking away from that. But I think it's also left back is a little bit up in the air.
Yeah.
And there are obvious candidates and there are not obvious candidates. And who knows what's going to happen?
I think it's a combination of all three. I think this is a play that goes all the way back to 2002 with Bruce Arena, right? So in some ways, putting Beasley on the roster, he risks some bad press, right? Because he risks people saying, "Oh, you're picking all the old guys," and it plays into the hands of all these people who want some sort of US soccer revolution where everybody on the senior men's national team is 15 years old or something. But Beasley is there, sort of, as the experienced left back in a weird way because he's played in the World Cup there. And you've got Greg Garza and I'm forgetting the other left back. Taylor Kemp.
Yeah, I was going to say you better not forget the Taylors.
So you've got a good mix of very experienced, got a few caps but then discarded by Klinsmann, which is Garza, and then you've got never played for the US men's national team. Nobody expected him on this roster in Taylor Kemp.
So I think that was a question that you still had, right? And that's the final segment we wanted to get to in discussing this roster. Is questions we still have after hearing Bruce Arena talk. And one of them was a question you brought up. Are there sort of tiers to this roster? Yes. Are there players that are like just happy to be there, sort of had a good season, here's your reward?
Yeah, I mean, he literally used that phrasing. Yeah,
exactly. And so you floated that idea. I didn't necessarily subscribe to it at first. I do now.
I've been working on you, chipping away.
Well, it also makes it easier to kind of figure out what's going to happen. Because it's sort of like, maybe Taylor Kemp isn't going to get that much playing time because it's sort of like, good job, buddy. Here's your call up to the national team. But maybe Beasley and Greg Garza are going to be the ones to get the actual minutes.
And I think there's an outside chance, especially for Taylor Kemp, because left back is such a sort of what's the word, like understaffed position for the United States. If Taylor Kemp does put in an amazing performance in camp, maybe he gets some minutes against Serbia and Jamaica, there's a chance that he becomes the new US left back.
Yeah.
But there's not that much of a chance.
Not really.
Right?
Because, I mean, in that interview, in the Facebook Live conversation, maybe not an interview, Arena said, Fabian Johnson is our left back right now. That's where he's played. But there are other options, and he was referring to these three gentlemen. Yeah. Now, he did say, when we talked about kind of the way he hedged a little bit at times, just to cover his butt, he being Arena, that he said one of the reasons why we can't play a back three is because we would need to figure out who those attacking fullback wingbacks could be. Yeah. That might be why Taylor Kemp is here. He had the hat trick of assists for DC United this season.
Against Orlando.
So maybe that's why he's here, is to experiment with that back three.
Well, to be fair, he has played as a regular left back for DC. It's just that, from what I understand, right, I read some blackandredunited.com, great DC blog, talking about there was a good comment actually from a DC fan under there saying he's really great going forward. He overlaps a lot, puts in good crosses, has a great left foot. As we saw against Montreal, he hit that shot against Montreal that was really impressive. But he's not great defensively. It's sort of defensive positioning in one-on-one. He's getting better, but he's not great. Yeah. So, I mean, he's kind of like the Edgar Castillo of the DC area.
So,
in some ways.
Well said. So, I do think that there are tiers. I would say I don't think any of the four center backs are in any particular tier, because I could see all of them getting significant playing time. I could see all of them getting real consideration. Arena, those are the other two players not on this roster that Arena discussed were John Brooks and Jeff Cameron. Yes. Singled them out. I feel like to be clear that they were your starting center backs.
Why wouldn't they be?
Yeah.
Right? Premier League centre back, Bundesliga centre back. Right?
Yeah.
But then Steve Birnbaum, Chad Marshall, Matt Hedges, and Walker Zimmerman, the latter two being of Dallas.
Yep.
Any of them could stake a claim for a spot in the roster. I don't see any of them starting against Honduras.
I don't either. But I did see Chad Marshall get a lot of attention from Bruce Arena in this Facebook Live conversation. So I'm not sponsored by Facebook Live, by the way, I promise. So that could be because Chad Marshall isn't going to get playing time, and so he wanted to give him credit here. Yeah. I feel like more likely it's because you're going to see Chad Marshall start.
Chad Marshall's so good in the air. There was a ball that came in, and he came and headed it clear during the Q&A.
Wasn't sure where you were going to go, but I buy it. One of the questions I had, while we're sticking with the people responsible for keeping the ball out of the net, would be about goalkeeper. Specifically, why is Stefan Fry in this roster?
Did you watch MLS Cup 2016?
That is a good answer. So the next question is, where does he fit? And that is because he is not a U.S. citizen. He has his green card, I believe. He's lived here since, I think, 2005. I believe he went to school here as well.
Right.
But did play for Swiss youth national teams.
Yeah.
So would, I think, have to file a one-time switch.
Right.
Regardless, there's a lot of maybe murkiness, haziness around Stefan Frei's status.
His immigration status, as I understand it, is identical to mine.
Except that I don't think you played for England at youth level. I could be wrong.
I didn't. Played for Stourbridge. Does that count?
Yes, it
That's
does.
in England.
Same level. We're good.
Eighth tier of English soccer.
Sure.
So yeah, he's a permanent resident. But he's been here long enough that once he gets his citizenship, which he could get semi-easily, especially with some US soccer legal help pushing things along, nudge nudge to the people who push the paperwork, he could easily switch and be a US eligible player.
Right. And I think that's where you get it, like why he's included here, aside from the fact that he's a good goalkeeper, is that Klinsmann was asked, who's your number one goalkeeper? His answer was Tim Howard and Brad Guzan.
Right.
He gave you two. He also said that William Yarbrough is in consideration. He said Ethan Horvath is in consideration. Then you look at this, and there are 4 goalkeepers listed.
He says gesturing to the screen.
He does. Excuse me. I apologize, listeners. At home, we have the roster up on the giant television. So that gives you 9 goalkeepers. Then Arena closed by saying, and we have 8 goalkeepers in consideration.
Yeah.
So I think that tells you Stefan Frei there as kind of a courtesy and as a reminder that if you get that citizenship, then you're in consideration.
There's also, I've just realised, there's a generation gap.
Yep.
Right? Guzan and Howard are kind of a little bit further up there. I actually don't know how old Guzan is, but he's definitely way over 30. Right?
I think he's 22. No, he's not. No.
But I think like when you look at some of these other guys, like Bill Hamid, a little bit younger, Stefan Frei is maybe fills that generation gap, right? Like Ethan Horvath, 20-something, young guy. You know what I mean? There's a gap in the middle that can be filled by someone like Stefan Frei.
Yeah, I think you're right. And so I think, again, it is kind of an incentive to maybe get that paperwork going. So maybe he shows up to camp and everybody else gets their gear and he gets a big stack of papers to fill out. We shall see.
My other question is about Josie Altidore. What is Josie Altidore's role in this team? And it's sort of a formation question because Bruce Arena said definitely about 4. Everything beyond that, we'll have to try and figure it out. It seems like definitely Sasha Kleshtin, definitely Michael Bradley. Do we have a third central midfielder and then Josie is alone up top with 2 wide guys? Or are we going to see a 2-man strike force?
Okay. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to say I think we're going to see him out top by himself.
Yeah.
And that would have scared me in the past.
I would be with you.
But, I'd be
biting my nails with you.
Here's my bold prediction. Could come back to bite me. I'm going to knock on some wood here. I think Bruce Arena is going to get the best out of Josie Altidore that we've seen him play for the national team. And we have seen him look very good. But I think
always in a 2-man strike force because he looks lonely on his own.
But I think Josie Altidore is at a point in his career where he has that belief. I think at times he didn't have that belief. He needed the backing. I don't think he would have really gotten that much more out of Jurgen Klinsmann because I think the writing was kind of on the wall. But Bruce Arena comes in and says, look, man, you're my guy. You've got to be the man. It's all on your shoulders. I'm expecting big things from you, but in a fatherly, arm around the shoulder sort of way. I could see him bringing Josie Altidore to another level than he's at currently.
Okay, I could see Jurgen Klinsmann putting his arm around Josie Altidore's shoulder and saying, hey, you're my guy. I expect big things out of you.
Yeah.
Then sending him out on the field. I see Bruce Arena putting the arm around, saying, you're my guy, I expect big things of you. And here are the specific instructions I would like you to fulfill in order to make those big things happen. That's the missing element. And I think the reason that Josie could be a more successful lone striker under Arena is he may get instructions about whether to pull wide, whether to make bending runs, whether to come back and show with his back to goal, when to spin and go. You know what I mean? I think there'll be more instructions and he'll thrive because of that.
Here's the way I can explain it better, is that because I just made it sound like it's a ton of pressure and like you got to perform. Yeah. It's more like this. Imagine you're on a road trip with your family. You're a 16-year-old. Maybe not you because you still don't have a license. But like, well, no, it fits actually. Because if you're on like a 16-year-old, you're on a road trip with your parents and your dad says like, here's the keys. You get to drive this leg. It would be this sort of like, wow, like it's my time has come. And the difference would be that like the dad throwing you the keys when he's Bruce Arena is like, you've got your license. And Klinsmann was like, I know you know how to drive a car, but here are the keys. Get us where we're going. I don't have a map.
You have a different stick?
Yeah, right? It's not important. It'll be fine. So that's what I mean, is I feel like Bruce Arena is throwing those keys to Josie Altidore with like, I know you can do it, pal.
Yeah.
Versus also, figure it out.
Here's how you do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really think that's the important thing.
I think so too. I think it's also important to figure out what Kekuta Mane's doing in this camp, because he won't be playing in the games. He's still, I forget what his actual status is.
So I believe his US citizenship is official. He's now a US citizen because he's been living in Point Roberts, right?
Yep.
Like playing for Vancouver, commuting from like a really far northwest US bit of land that sticks out. But he's not eligible to switch to a national team because he hasn't resided in the United States for quite long enough.
Right.
So he's a US citizen, but has to fulfill a FIFA requirement of residency. It was that rule that was set up to kind of stop people, for example, Brazilians moving to Qatar and quickly playing for the Qatar national team. Right?
Yeah.
Minimum residency requirement.
And I think that might even, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like that's even what David Regi did, was like he moved to the U.S. and 3 months later was playing for the national team, but he might have already been a citizen through heritage.
I'm not sure.
Either way, I think this is similar to Stefan Fry. It's a reward for a strong season and a continued growth as a player, but it's also a reward for making the sacrifices, living where he lives, doing what he does in order to be eligible for the U.S. national team one day, that one day being, I think, late December of 2017.
Yes, I think that's what I heard too.
It's a way to say, hey, you're in our consideration, keep playing, keep working, you'll get there.
And also to introduce him to everybody else he might be playing with in the near future. Because bear in mind, December 2017 is before June 2018. So that puts you in contention for a World Cup.
Look at you knowing numbers.
I know how calendars work.
All right. Anything else before I run out the door, Mr. Grove?
I mean, there are many, many things, but I think we've got like a few weeks before the first friendly against Serbia, second friendly against Jamaica. Maybe next time we convene, we can see if we can pick a starting 11 from all these players.
And maybe follow up on some bits and bobs we may have missed, answer some questions about this roster if we get any questions.
Yeah. After you've gone, we have a pre-recorded Wikipedia game, which we will add to this show, so you can listen to the return of Peyton Siddall in the Wikipedia game. Up first, we have a word from today's sponsor. As Taylor runs out of the door behind me, I will tell you that today's show is sponsored by Roughneck Scarves. Roughneck Scarves are the official provider of scarves for US Soccer, MLS, NCAA, USL, and the Total Soccer Show. We're honoured to be in such a company. We're honoured that Roughneck Scarves are the provider of Total Soccer Show scarves. And I can say that I really, really like the product. I can say that because I did not design it. The professionals at Roughneck designed it for us. If you would like to purchase a US national team scarf and show your support for the team in 2017, you can go to roughneckscarves.com, spelled RUFFNECK, scarves.com. You can use the coupon code Total Soccer Show, all one word, all uppercase. You get 20% off your order. So you can buy a US soccer scarf or you could buy a Total Soccer Show scarf. The link will be in the show notes. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's episode. So as we alluded to, Taylor has had to run. He promised our friend Scott a ride to the airport. So he is out of here. But we did, earlier in the day, record a Wikipedia game, a trivia showdown, with Taylor hosting and myself and Peyton Siddall playing. So here's that Wikipedia game.
All right, with us in studio now, we've got former co-host, always a friend, Peyton Siddall. Peyton, welcome back.
Good afternoon.
Oh, that's business mode.
It's very specific. I forgot Peyton's very specific, man.
Well, that will suit him well as we get ready to play the Wikipedia game. Daryl, would you like to run down the rules to the Wikipedia game, or should I do that for you?
Ooh, it's been a while, right? It was August. We had Laura back in studio to play. So, to quote Marlon Frisbee, the Wikipedia game is a soccer trivia showdown. Taylor has some mystery players' Wikipedia pages in front of him. I see notes. Maybe he's printed some out.
I have, but I've decided that with you all sitting in such close proximity, I feel like it's better if I just do them via the screen.
Are you suggesting we might cheat?
I'm suggesting and also just saying that you will probably cheat.
Hey, I'm in it to win it. So Taylor will read us clues.
It's not a showdown for nothing, dude. Like, they're high stakes.
Taylor will read us clues from that player's Wikipedia page, and then he will tell us how many teams that player played for, according to the list that's always on the right-hand side of the Wikipedia page. And then Peyton and I will bid on how many of those teams or clubs we would need to know in order to name that player. When you think the other guy's bluffing, or when you think he can't do it, you can call his bluff and say, name that player.
I just want to say the mind games have already begun, Peyton, because he said he was going to call you Taylor before you even got here, just to get in your head. Yeah,
It worked. That's what it is. I think I'm going to be bluffing a lot, so I'm very out of practice.
Oh, and there's another part, right? If we get below zero teams, you can go below zero. You can say we get very American and we say -4, and then I would have to name the teams, or Peyton would have to name the teams instead of you telling us.
All right, so we've got 2 categories today.
Yep.
One is inspired by when I wasn't here and you guys did the team of the 90s, and Peyton and Albert actively colluded to not include Eric Cantona. So it's...
Can we go back to that? I had to come in the studio after that episode and record a sort of an addendum saying, oh, hey, we know we missed Eric Cantona. It was Peyton and Albert's fault.
I was on a treadmill in northern Iraq getting angrier and angrier, and I think the people around me were very concerned.
Honestly, it wasn't that much pre-collusion, but we thought it was pretty funny after the fact.
So, With that in mind, current Manchester United players is one, and then we have Wolverpool players, which is players that have played for both Wolverhampton and Liverpool.
Oh, wow.
So we have, are there 3 categories?
Just two.
Okay.
So it's players that have played for both Wolverhampton and Liverpool is one category. Current Manchester United players is another category.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So, since Peyton is, I'm going to say the returning champion, because why not? Peyton, which category would you like to start with?
Let's go Wolverpool, please.
Okay.
Peyton is unbeaten in years.
That's true. That's very true. Okay. This gentleman played for both Wolverhampton and Liverpool, has 8 clubs, no repeats, which means he did not play for any of the clubs twice, 52 appearances and 2 goals for his national team. He's also managed 6 teams, though none since 2014. He won the Premier League twice, that's the Premier League twice, and the FA Cup twice. It's an important point there about him winning the Premier League. He played in England and Italy, but only ever won silverware as a player with 1 club. Do we need one more big clue, or do you guys feel good?
No, but I'm just moving my notes to the other side of the table.
Peyton, how are you feeling?
Because he's a notorious cheater.
Do you want one more clue, or you feel
Sure,
good
one
go?
more clue, please.
He was the first black captain of the England national team. There we are. 8 clubs, no repeats. We will start with Peyton. Peyton, how many do you need to know?
I will go with 5 to start it off.
Daryl Grove?
0. I can name him in 0 teams.
Daryl says 0. We go back to Peyton.
I'll go -2.
Ooh.
I'll go -3.
Okay.
I've got tense already. I like it.
Peyton?
Is it really that tense?
Given that you
On
know,
point.
given that you know 2 of the teams because they're in the
Yeah,
category.
why don't you help him some more, Taylor?
Well, it's back to you. So he's got negative. You said -3.
Yep.
Obviously stalling for time.
Okay.
Go
I'm
ahead
a
and
host here. You shouldn't tell me these things.
go ahead and name that player, Daryl.
This player is Paul Ince.
Right.
Okay, he's played for Liverpool.
Yep.
He's played for Wolves.
Yep.
And he's played for Manchester United.
Correct. Also in there, West Ham, Internazionale, Middlesbrough, Swindon Town, and Macclesfield.
All right.
And I was emphasizing the Premier League because if you get in your head of like, oh, so he won the Premier League with Liverpool, but he didn't win the Premier League with Liverpool.
Because
obviously.
they've never won a
There
Premier
it is. So Daryl gets that point. We will go back to Peyton. Peyton, do you want Wolverpool, your final Wolverpool player, or do you want Manchester United players?
Before he answers, could we maybe investigate further the idea of a Wolverhampton-Liverpool merger? Because with Liverpool's position in the table right now and Wolves, I'm kind of into this idea.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
So I feel like that's maybe more beneficial for one of those
Oh, yeah, I
teams.
mean, we keep Klopp as manager, we keep all the Liverpool players, and they keep playing the same way, but they would wear Wolves kits. And play
Do they
orange.
have to play in the Midlands?
Yes.
Tough sell.
It's going to be tough. All right, Peyton, what do you want to do? Wolverpool or Man United?
Let's do Manchester United players.
Okay. We're going to go with this gentleman who has... I'll go with this gentleman. 9 clubs, one of them twice. And I'll just remind you, there is the Taylor rule in effect when it comes to repeat clubs, which is that if he's been loaned to a club and then signed for that club, if it's listed twice, then that's 2 clubs.
Wikipedia rules, right?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
He has 116 appearances for his national team, scoring 62 goals. He's won silverware in 5 different countries, as well as the 2013 Puskás Award. He also put out a single in 2014 that peaked at number 14 in the charts in his native land. And I feel like maybe that's all you guys need, but maybe I'll give you one more.
Disagree?
He has an He has an absolutely insane goal-scoring record of 1 goal every 1.69 games. All right, so 9 clubs, one of them twice, 116 appearances, 62 goals, has won silverware in 5 countries, as well as the 2013 Puskás Award, had a single that peaked at number 14, and has an amazing goal-scoring record. You both seem like you're confused, and I don't know why, but we'll see what happens, because 9 clubs to Peyton.
I'm going to start with a high number again, just to get it going. Let's
Okay.
go 6 clubs.
Daryl Grove.
I'll go 4 clubs.
Okay. Peyton.
1 club.
Daryl Grove.
Deep breath. All right, I can name him in 0 clubs.
Okay.
All right. So 9 teams, Puskás Award, 5 countries. I am thinking about the United roster and blanking at the second. I will go -2 teams.
I'm going to say name that player.
All right. So he is Eastern European, I'm guessing, with the Puskás Award. The only person I can think of, I don't know if they played for 9 clubs.
I would remind you to look at that goal scoring record.
Yeah. 62 and 116, so he's older. And this is current Manchester United players, right?
Oh, I missed that part.
Did you?
Yeah. All right.
So
is that why you were confused?
Okay. Current Manchester United attackers who are older and ride the bench a lot, and I honestly don't know. I was bluffing.
I feel like you're gonna be
I feel like you're
gonna be real mad at yourself when I tell you that it's Zlatan Ibrahimovic.
Yeah, I am.
All right, so
for the record, the Pushkas Award is not for his new. It's the FIFA Goal of the Year.
So that's what. Okay.
Yeah, and your big hint was going to be that he was allegedly offered a trial by Arsene Wenger when he was 17 before he turned pro, but turned it down, stating, "I don't do auditions," and he did not refer to himself in the first person. He absolutely said Zlatan does not do auditions. Malmo, Ajax, Juventus, Inter, Barca, Milan, PSG, Man United.
Yeah, I have been busy. I haven't been watching as much soccer as I need to for this.
How did we both forget about Zlatan?
I don't know, but you both did. That's why you both looked. I thought you were hustling me, Daryl, because I thought that you were making the face in hopes that I would give you more obvious clues. So I was like, not this time, friend. But anyway.
Maybe it's just Zlatan at United is such a new phenomenon that it's hard to immediately think of that.
All right,
you know what I'm
that
saying?
could be. Well, Daryl got the point there. I think we're playing to 3. But we'll see what happens.
It's going to be a hell of a comeback, I'm
sure.
I'm
going to let Daryl choose this time. Daryl, do you want to go Liverpool or current Man United?
Let's have another crack at current Man United.
Okay. Yeah. All right. This gentleman has 5 clubs, none of them twice, 61 appearances for his national team, scoring 19 goals. He is the first player from his country to play in the Premier League. His father, Hamlet, was also a pro footballer who died when this player was only 7. He had unsuccessful trials in Brazil and Iran before his career kickstarted. He speaks 6 languages fluently and is working on Italian. But I would emphasize that he is the first player from his country to play in the Premier League. That happened this season. 5 clubs, none of them twice. We will start with Daryl Grove. Daryl Grove?
I'll go with 2 clubs to start.
I'll start with 1 club.
I can name him in 0 clubs.
First player from his nation to play in the Premier League, and it started this season. He's a new signing this season.
That is correct.
Is this like he's brand new country or no?
You looking for hints? Is that what you're getting at?
Anything I can get.
Once the bidding starts, the hints are over.
So we're at 0 right now, Mr. Grove.
I'll tell you this: I'm not bluffing this time.
Yeah, you can name him in 0 clubs.
Yep. Or unless I'm double bluffing right now.
I can name him in -1 club.
I can go -2.
Okay. So
I feel like that might be the extent of it, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
I'm pretty sure that's going to be it. Man, see, this is unfortunate because I'm trying to think of any Kosovo players, but I think Januzaj has been gone. I'm going to go ahead and say name that player down.
Go a little farther east.
Yeah,
is it Mkhitaryan?
It is Henrik Mkhitaryan.
Thank you for giving me the first name. And he's played for Borussia Dortmund and Manchester United.
Yeah, maybe that is collusion. I don't know how I feel about that.
I would have guessed anyway.
Yeah, I don't know. Also, Pionik, Metalur Donetsk, and Shakhtar Donetsk.
All right.
He was one of the Shakhtar guys. So that's 3-0.
Whoa.
Peyton.
The most dangerous lead. If you're
how you feeling? This is true.
That was rough. It was rough. There's definitely a couple of them I felt like I had. Well, actually, all 3 of those. The first one and the third one I had, but I wasn't sure. So,
well, I think we should do Liverpool one more time. And
all right.
This one is worth 3 points.
That's what I've decided. This is
a Giroud goal.
Yes. All right.
This is a pity one.
Here we go. I know we've done this gentleman on the show before. I believe. I'm pretty sure. This gentleman has 12 clubs, 2 of them twice, 146 appearances for his national team, scoring 68 goals. 146, 68. That makes him his country's all-time most capped player and its top scorer. He scored his first pro goal in August of 1997 and played his most recent game in November of 2016. He is not yet retired. So far, he has played for clubs in 4 different countries. Do you all want one more clue, or do you feel confident with those clues?
Could you repeat the early stuff? I missed how many teams he played for.
Sure. 12 clubs, 2 of them twice, so 2 repeats. 146 appearances, 68 goals. He is his country's all-time most capped player and its top scorer.
That's his international goal-scoring record?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep. Peyton?
I'll take one more clue. I never won't.
He was the Premier League Player of the Month in August 1999, the SPL Player of the Month in March 2010, and the MLS Player of the Month in July 2012. So that should give you an idea of where he's played. And with that, I will say, Daryl got the point last time. Peyton, we'll start the bidding with you. 12 clubs.
I'll start with 6.
Daryl Grove.
I'll go 5.
Peyton.
3.
Daryl Grove.
2.
Peyton Siddall.
I'll go 1 club.
Daryl Grove. He just remembered it, didn't you?
-3.
There we go.
All right.
I'm curious what made it kick in, but yeah.
It's just I've got a slow hard drive.
So, Premier League Player of the Month in August 1999, SPL Player of the Month in March 2010, MLS Player of the Month in July 2012.
Let's go. Furiously writing.
Yeah.
Gibberish.
Daryl, you said -3, is that correct? Or did you say -2?
He said -3.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'll go -4.
All right.
I'll go -5.
All right, I'll say name that player then.
All right.
It is Robbie Keane.
Of course it is.
Yes.
All right. What you got?
Let's go LA Galaxy.
I'm going to start writing because I'm not sure. Let's see how far you get. Yeah.
Wolves. Liverpool.
Yeah.
Spurs. How many do I need?
5.
Leeds United.
Correct.
I could also give you Coventry City. Inter, briefly. How many more do I need? Spurs again.
There it is. And Leeds again because he was loaned to Leeds. Yeah.
Right.
I think that's about Coventry, Inter, Leeds, Tottenham,
Celtic.
Liverpool, Tottenham, Celtic. And West Ham. He had a loan at West Ham. And at Aston Villa. He had loans at both of those clubs. But either way.
When he was loaned to Aston Villa, I think he scored a hat-trick against Wolves. It was part of getting us relegated. It was disgusting.
6 appearances and 3 goals for Aston Villa. There we are. Well, Peyton, welcome back to the Wikipedia game.
Yeah. I think that was a 6-0, right?
Oh, no, we changed it to it was 1 point. 1 point. And actually, it was -2 points. So it's back to 1-0, I think, is what Daryl wins by. Yeah, I like to keep it creative here at the Total Soccer Show. But Peyton, thanks for coming back.
Yeah,
nice to have you in studio again.
It was fun to get back on the mic.
It's like you got to do less LSAT study, more Wikipedia games.
Yeah, right.
I've been wasting my time.
Where is your future, Peyton, if not with Wikipedia game trivia? What, you think you're going to be some fancy pants lawyer wearing your suspenders? Come on.
We'll see.
Well, Peyton, thank you very much. Daryl, congratulations to you. How do you feel?
It's like Daniel Sturridge.
Oh, that's listeners. He's doing the Daryl Grove impression of the Daniel Sturridge dance, and it was not good. It was not good.
There's more wavy arms guy in the inflatable.
Yeah, the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube man. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. All right. So more Wikipedia game hopefully in the future, but for now, that's all.
This is Daryl again, back in the studio. I hope you enjoyed that. I know I did. That's a pretty big win. I'm pretty proud of that. If you're a long-time listener, you'll know that Peyton is a competitive, fierce Wikipedia game player. If you enjoyed that, let us know, and we'll try and have more Wikipedia games on future Total Soccer shows. So we did promise scouting reports today. We had scouting reports from a lot of young US national team players. Unfortunately, because of Taylor's ride to the airport commitment, we can't get to that today. We will get to scouting reports on Friday. Speaking of Friday's show, it's either going to be our favourite things from the Premier League so far this season. That show's kind of ready. We've done our research and we're ready to go. Or it could be looking at the divisional alignments that US Soccer are going to announce for USL and the NASL. We don't quite know exactly when that's going to be announced, but the rumour is it could be announced on Friday. Then again, it was supposed to be announced December 6th, so, take it all with a pinch of salt. Closing thoughts, I want to say thanks again to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show. Go to roughneckscarves.com, take a look at their selection. And finally, have a listen to our other podcast if you like the Total Soccer Show. Try Goalmouth. Search for Goalmouth in iTunes or whatever podcast app you use. It's our early morning, 7 a.m. every morning, soccer news bulletin show that we produce in conjunction with Howler Magazine and Dirty Tackle and the magnificent Ryan Bailey. If you listen Friday morning, it will be Ryan's episode. All right, on behalf of Taylor and myself, it is goodbye from us here at Total Soccer Show Towers, and we'll talk to you again on Friday.